We're now just 3 days away from Season 3, the 3-episode premiere. Make sure you're subscribed because I'm going to be doing a breakdown, a review. We're going to go pretty deep in our analysis. But today, The Bad Batch's producer Jennifer Corbett, the showrunner of this series, has answered a big question. She is so often asked about events within the context of the show, but we can't forget that the vast majority of these characters originate in Dave Filoni's Clone Wars series. And that brings us on to a massive question that she was asked about. After Echo was rescued, after the events of Skako Minor, did he and Rex ever talk about Fives? In The Bad Batch Season 1 on Bracca, Rex tells Echo and the rest of the batch that Fives tried to warn him about the chips, but we never see an on-screen conversation where Rex tells Echo the fate of their old friend, and the entire clone conspiracy that led to his tragic death. So Jen was asked if such an interaction ever took place. A good question. I've always said Season 6 is the most underrated, and the conspiracy arc with Fives is amongst the best of the entire of the 7 seasons. So let's take a look at what she said. With Star Wars The Bad Batch coming to an end after 3 seasons, and the 3-episode premiere is set to drop on the 21st, fans are preparing to bid farewell to Clone Force 99. We don't know who's going to survive, who makes it out alive. By the time of Star Wars Rebels, Echo is not with Rex, but he is at this time, as they're trying to recruit clones. So what's going to happen to him, the last surviving member of the beloved Domino Squad? While Jennifer Corbett didn't want to spill any beans as to the heartbreak that both she and D. Bradley Baker hinted at, she was more willing to answer a question from a die-hard Clone Wars fan, who asked if after Echo was rescued, did Rex have a conversation with him about the fate of Fives? While this never happened on screen, the showrunner of The Bad Batch did reiterate, it doesn't mean it never happened. Just because we never saw it, the two may have talked off-screen. And she is inclined to take it as headcanon, saying this: for Fives, I imagine that Rex and Echo did have that conversation. And I know in Season 1 we did have Rex reference Fives. She says according to her headcanon, those conversations have already taken place. How could they not? During the Clone Wars, Fives and Echo went on to become Advanced Recon Commandos, better known as ARC Troopers. And Fives really distinguished himself as one of the best. Now when Lucasfilm was making Season 6, the money was drying up on the show. There were so many arcs not completed, and it was believed that was going to be the last season for a long time. They were already starting to wrap up the war, going down the plot of the inhibitor chips. It all started when a good friend of Fives, Tup, suddenly executed Jedi Master Tiplar mid-mission, which led the Jedi to investigate what happened. Fives eventually discovered that all the clones had a chip in their brains. At this time, no one had any idea about Darth Sidious, and the fact Palpatine was behind all of it, and orchestrating both sides of the war. Tup's chip malfunctioned, causing him to kill the Jedi. The Kaminoans claimed the chips were only there to make clones more compliant, but Fives didn't buy that excuse, and conducted his own investigation. He soon realized something very grave. The chips would make all of the clones eventually turn on the Jedi and the Republic. The only difference is that Tup's chip malfunctioned earlier than planned. Fives worked out that the Kaminoans, Count Dooku, and even Chancellor Palpatine were in on the plan. He tried to tell Rex and Anakin what was happening, but they thought he was a lunatic. They thought he'd gone mad. He was killed before he could expose the plot. And so, it was only later after the execution of Order 66 that Rex realized he was right. And so moving on to our next subject, possibly a very exciting Star Wars gaming update. We might be getting our first proper look at the much anticipated Star Wars Eclipse sometime this spring. The game is still a couple of years away, but a new update has given Star Wars fans a lot of hope. Quantic Dream have announced they're going to be presenting a quote, hands-on opportunity for their most anticipated release at the gaming convention PAX East in Boston between March 21st and March 24th. Now at first my reaction was, that's way too soon. It seems much too early considering the scope of what they want to achieve with this game, so there is a bit of doubt if this is going to be for Star Wars or something else. But according to a short promo on French TV from late last year, Star Wars Eclipse is the one game the company is dedicating everything to, the one they're most heavily focusing on. When they say they're going to be showcasing their most anticipated release, I wonder how it can't be Star Wars. Now while the big Star Wars game of 2024 is the open world Star Wars Outlaws, it doesn't mean we can't get our first sneak peek for what's coming down the line, and that looks more and more likely to be the case. So just for a bit of context, this is a really crucial year for Lucasfilm. It's a year where the High Republic goes from beyond the pages of the novels and the comics and comes into live action in the form of the Acolyte sometime this summer. But we've also had Young Jedi Adventures, the animated series which started last year, which has been a great success, and season 1 just came to an end. I was quite curious, because while I did watch a couple of episodes when it first came out, my interest over time kind of dwindled. But yesterday, I decided to binge the entire thing, and to my surprise, I can see why it's been a raging success for Lucasfilm. Despite it being aimed at children and families, it is still fundamentally a Star Wars show, and the finale had a surprising amount of connections and references to the original trilogy, the prequel trilogy, and the wider established world of the High Republic, from authors like James Woe, Cavan Scott, and others. But a third element of the multimedia High Republic initiative that fans are really looking forward to is the game being developed by Quantic Dream, Star Wars Eclipse. A couple of years ago they gave us our first cinematic trailer, but nothing in the way of gameplay footage to get a good sense of what the game is going to look like when you're playing it, and the overall experience of the player. But from the brief glimpse of the story, the lightsaber fights, having Jedi Master Yoda, the Jedi Council on Coruscant named Moidians, massive galactic battles, and some kind of evil Sith species at the end, fans were hooked. That was, in my opinion, without a doubt, one of the best gaming trailers we've had under Disney, and we've had comments from creatives about the game being fundamentally part of Quantic Dream's blueprint. The decisions you make impact the story. There was a really fascinating question related to all of this, floating around social media over the last couple of days. Star Wars fans were asked, are they excited for the High Republic? Are fans who maybe didn't get into the books excited for this to come into video games, into live action, and for it to be on our screens? I think the Acolyte is absolutely going to be a very huge determining factor in all of this. In my opinion, some of the characters, some of the concepts, and also some of the storylines have been hit and miss. I'm not going to lie to you, I've not been too invested. From what I've read, they've not given me too much of a reason to really care as much, so I have to wonder if the visual media is going to give us a very different sense of this time period, interpret characters, concepts, and the general pre-episode 1 world differently to the way some of the authors have. What do you guys think? Are you excited for High Republic video games and shows? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video. May the Force be with you, always.